civil rights attorney and Fox News contributor Leo Terrell is with us as well. He's joined us throughout this process. He joins us now. Leo, your reaction as you join us by phone.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very glad that justice prevailed. I think most objective lawyers felt that Kyle Rittenhouse had an affirmative defense of self-defense. I think these verdicts are correct. I think Kyle Rittenhouse should never have been charged. I think the prosecution basically made him an example of what happened last year. And I think that outside noise, I'm very proud as a civil rights attorney because the outside noise did not intimidate, did not deter the jury from looking at the facts inside that courtroom, and this is a just verdict. The only people who be upset are those who have a hidden agenda outside the rule of law.
Leo, it's John here. The verdict came down as the White House press briefing was underway. Jen Psaki was asked about it. She said that the White House will try to get a statement out as soon as possible. It will be interesting, Leo, to see what the White House has to say about this, because as you'll recall, during the election campaign in 2020, Joe Biden tweeted out a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse and talked about white supremacists. What's your perspective on what the world saw about Kyle Rittenhouse during this trial versus what the president, when he was a candidate for office, had suggested about him?
Let me give Joe Biden some advice. Be very careful what you say because you're subject to a possible defamation lawsuit. John, I want to be very clear. There's not a single shred of evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. This was a statement that Joe Biden is going to have to pay for and justify. And I think the White House, in my opinion, or at least Joe Biden, the candidate at that time, tried to utilize the Kyle Rittenhouse case in his run for the presidency. We are a nation of laws. And at that point when he made that statement, John, he had no facts to make this outrageous allegation of white supremacy. And then you look at what's been going on these other networks where they were talking about this is a case where white man's tears. You saw an 18-year-old young man cry on that witness stand because he honestly believed he was fighting and saving his life. And guess what, John? A jury of his peers said, you're right. You had no other choice but to defend yourself. I'm proud of the jury system as a lawyer for 30 years.
Anyone tuning in now, you see the news on your screen, found not guilty of all charges against him. Kyle Rittenhouse, just 18 years old now. He was 17. You'll remember when he left his home in Antioch, Illinois, when he went to Kenosha, summer of 2020. Leo, what will life be like for Kyle Rittenhouse after this day?
It will never be the same. He won't be the 18-year-old young man who was basically working between living with his mom and his dad, working as a lifeguard. His life has been changed forever. Hopefully, the one great thing he has in his favor is vindication. Now, what he does with this and how his life goes forward is pure speculation. Lawyers don't want to speculate. But I think this is so important. This young man was facing life imprisonment, his life taken away. And basically, the jury said, no, you did nothing wrong, and you are vindicated by basically 3 not guilty verdicts. It's a great day. What he does with his life, only time will tell, Sandra.
So, Leo, many times in cases like this, we would await the defendant, now cleared of all charges and just a civilian, goes back to his day-to-day life, to come out on the front steps of the courthouse and maybe his attorney speak, or maybe he or she would speak. But the steps of the courthouse are occupied by protesters who have been there pretty much through the entire trial and certainly through the jury deliberations. And the big question hanging in everyone's mind, Leo, is what happens now that he has been acquitted on the streets of Kenosha? People in that city, particularly businesses, have been sweating it out, wondering what might happen. Will there be a return to the unrest on the streets that we saw in August of 2020? What do you think?
John, I thank you for that question because you saw groups outside, what I call agitators, Black Lives Matter, for example, outside. Let me be very clear for all the viewers of Fox. Kyle Rittenhouse did not shoot or kill or injure a black person. There were 3 white individuals who were alleged victims. I think if you find disturbance on the street It is those what I call agitators who want to play the race card, who wants to somehow claim the system is unfair. So I'm hoping that the country accepts the verdict, universal. But I'm not naive. I'm not naive to ignore what happened 12 months ago in Kenosha or what happened in 2020, the summer of riots. So we're going to have to watch and see. I think it's smart to have National Guard troops there, but the verdict is a confirmation that the legal system works. The question is, will the outside agitators and those, what I consider the left-wing media, will they accept it and tell basically their surrogates not to riot and loot?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.